If you were to ask any sentient being in the known universe to describe humans in one word, chill would top the list. Not intelligent. The Arcturnians had us beat there. Not physically impressive. Have you seen a Korgoth warrior? And certainly not technologically advanced. The Zeta Reticulans still laugh about our quaint FTL drives. No, humanity's superpower was our unshakable, borderline pathological, ability to stay calm in the face of cosmic absurdity. My name is Zeph Quinn, Senior Diplomatic Envoy of Earth's Interstellar Relations Corps, and I was the chillest of the chill. 3 solar flares during negotiations with the photosensitive Lumerians. I didn't even blink. Accidental declaration of war against the Proxima Centauri collective due to a translator glitch. These things happen, I said with a shrug that became legendary. When the Galactic Council's Secretary General, a gelatinous cube named Blorb, accidentally absorbed and digested Earth's original membership certificate, I simply produced a backup copy from my briefcase and offered Blorb some antacids. The Galactic Council itself was, to put it mildly, a circus. Imagine the United Nations, but with 247 species, most of which evolved in environments that would immediately kill the others. The architecture alone was a nightmare simultaneously underwater, filled with toxic gas, bombarded with radiation, and kept at temperatures ranging from absolute zero to the surface of a small star, all separated by force fields that failed approximately twice per standard cycle. Humanity joined this cosmic community about 70 Earth years ago, and quickly gained a reputation as the species that could mediate anything. Need someone to stay cool while negotiating with methane-breathing psychics who communicate entirely through controlled flatulence. We call a human. Need a diplomat who won't be offended when accidentally propositioned by a sentient fungal colony. Earth's your planet. Scifi, which is why what happened during Cycle 7829's routine council meeting was so shocking. It started like any other Monday, because somehow, throughout the entire universe, the concept of Monday independently evolved as the worst day of any given time. Cycle cosmologists are still baffled. I sat in Earth's modest pod, reviewing notes for the upcoming trade discussion with the Canis Major Consortium. Ambassador Grick TK of the Silicon Hive was droning on about asteroid mining rights. The Melvonians were secreting boredom pheromones potent enough to make 3 smaller species unconscious. Standard procedure. Then Representative Krill Exar of the Vespid Collective took the floor, and my communication implant pinged with an emergency message from Earth. The old coffee plantation's under attack. Situation critical. And just like that, the universe's worst Monday began. The Glorgnax Federation's annual Unity Gala was, as always, a hazardous exercise in cross-species mingling. I straightened my regulation dress uniform and tried to ignore the ominous coffee alert as I navigated the Grand Hall of the Glorgnax Embassy, a structure that appeared to be made entirely of crystallized methane and bad architectural decisions. Quinn. There you are. Admiral Pax T. Loki materialized beside me, her uniform impeccably pressed, anxiety radiating off her in waves detectable by at least 3 empathic species in attendance. Did you get the alert about the coffee situation? I've already drafted 17 contingency plans, 9 emergency protocols, and have stress sweated through my second uniform of the day. T. Loki was Earth's finest military strategist, brilliant, thorough, and perpetually convinced the universe was about to end. Her fidgeting hands were currently reducing a napkin to subatomic particles. Deep breaths. Admiral, I soothed. We'll figure it out. Where's Dazzle? As if summoned by his name, Mick Dazzle crashed into the conversation, literally, at ease, by tripping over an ambassador's ceremonial tail extension and somersaulting to a stop at our feet. Somehow his sunglasses remained perfectly in place. Sup, diplomatic dudes? Mick flashed his trademark grin. Just teaching the Glorgnax High Chancellor how to fist bump. Did you know their fists secrete a mild hallucinogen? The ceiling is currently made of tapioca. Mick Dazzle, former reality show host, accidental hero of the Betelgeuse incident, and now through a series of bureaucratic errors that would take 16 forms to explain Earth's cultural ambassador. The man had no qualifications beyond vibes, and yet somehow had negotiated 3 peace treaties by simply inviting warring factions to chill and watch the sunset, bro. Focus, Dazzle, T. Loki hissed. All of Earth's coffee is under attack. This is a level 1 emergency. Heavy, Mick nodded sagely. Should I break out the emergency espresso beans I smuggled in my... You have coffee? T. Loki grabbed Mick by his rhinestone-studded lapels. 3 nearby security drones activated their threat protocols. I quickly separated them. Let's not cause an incident. We're here to maintain relations with the Globnaks. Too late. Mick's commotion had drawn the attention of Ambassador Glor Blarp Naku, undulated toward us, his 7 sensory appendages quivering with diplomatic anticipation. Humans SS, the ambassador burbled. We are most pleased by your attendance. We have prepared special nutrient cubes aligned with your digestive capabilities. He gestured to a tray of what appeared to be glowing green jello shots. The protocol dictated I consume at least one. I reached for the least radioactive-looking cube when T. Loki's communicator buzzed. She glanced at it and went pale. The Vespids have just issued a statement denying any involvement in the coffee attacks, which is strange because no one accused them. Before I could process this, Mick, who had already consumed 3 nutrient cubes, began to hover 6 inches off the ground. Dudes, I can taste colors. And wait, those Vespid representatives are carrying what looks like coffee plant samples. Sure enough, across the hall, 3 Vespid diplomats were hastily concealing what appeared to be Earth vegetation. When they noticed us watching, they buzzed in alarm and scuttled toward the exit. After them, T. Loki commanded, already calculating pursuit trajectories. Wait, I cautioned. We can't just... But Mick was already floating after them, propelled by whatever was in those nutrient cubes, shouting, "Coffee thieves! You're harshing humanity's mellow." The Globnaks ambassador's appendages twisted in confusion. Is this a traditional human diplomatic ritual? Sort of. I sighed, maintaining my calm facade while mentally preparing the 17 apology forms I'd need to file later. Admiral, please ensure Dazzle doesn't cause an interstellar incident. Too late. Mick had tackled a Vespid diplomat, sending coffee plant samples flying across the ballroom, one landing directly in the Globnak's High Chancellor's drinking orifice. As alarms blared and T. Loki began implementing Contingency Plan 4, I realized we had stumbled upon something much bigger than a simple agricultural attack. This was a conspiracy that went all the way to the Galactic Council itself. The underground markets of the Galactic Hub resembled what would happen if Tokyo, Marrakech, and a supernova had a baby. Neon signs advertised everything from authentic human kidneys, slightly used, to quantum uncertainty reducers, 60% effective. The air was thick with spices from 17 planets, and probably illegal on half of them. According to my analysis, Dr. Ellie Bronson said, examining readings on her multi-spectrum scanner, these residual particles are definitely from Earth-origin coffee plants. She sniffed disapprovingly at a vendor selling what claimed to be human emotion extractors, but were clearly repackaged Tamagotchis. Also, that man is selling counterfeit nostalgia, highly toxic to Venusian limbic systems. Dr. Bronson was Earth's premier xenobiologist, brilliant, meticulous, and blessed with the social grace of a caffeinated honey badger. She had once told the supreme leader of the Draconian Empire that his ceremonial headdress made his cranial ridge look evolutionarily questionable. Can we focus? Admiral T. Loki whispered harshly, we're supposed to be undercover. This was technically true, though our disguises left much to be desired. I was draped in a shimmering cloak that allegedly made me look Andromedan. It didn't. T. Loki had applied blue face paint and stuck antennae to her officer's cap. Mick Dazzle had simply turned his jacket inside out and was now calling himself Elzad K. Siem. Chill, blue face, Mick said, somehow already on a first-name basis with half the contraband dealers in the market. My new buddy XR8 says all the coffee smuggling leads to Bay 94. Your buddy is a known information broker who'd sell his own exoskeleton for the right price, T. Loki muttered. Yeah, but he makes excellent point about the Vespids. Mick popped a suspicious blue candy into his mouth. They hate coffee. Why would they steal something they can't consume? It was a good question. The Vespid physiology was incompatible with caffeine. It caused their exoskeletons to become temporarily translucent, a significant disadvantage for a species whose cultural cornerstone was looking intimidating. We made our way deeper into the market, following Ellie's scanner. The further we went, The more coffee-related contraband we spotted: beans, plants, even crude Earth-style coffee machines modified to work with alien power sources. This is bigger than just the Vespids, I realized. Look at this operation, it's too organized, too well-funded. Indeed, human Quinn, came a silky voice from behind us. Your species' observational skills remain adequate. We spun around to find ourselves surrounded by Vespid guards, their stingers gleaming under the market's chaotic lighting. At their center stood Council Representative Krill Zal himself, his compound eyes reflecting our startled faces in hundreds of tiny mirrors. I'm disappointed, Krill Zal chittered. I expected to have at least another standard cycle before humans figured out our involvement. So you admit it? T. Loki stepped forward, hand instinctively reaching for her sidearm. The Vespid Collective is behind the coffee theft. Behind it? Krill Zal's mandibles clicked in what passed for Vespid amusement. My dear Admiral, we are merely the visible portion of a much larger operation. The Coffee Initiative has supporters throughout the Council. Did you never wonder why your species' famed calm was so unique in the galaxy? Dr. Bronson's scanner suddenly blared an alert. Seth, I'm detecting massive quantities of coffee that way. She pointed toward a heavily guarded warehouse entrance. What's your game, Krill Zal? I demanded, maintaining my diplomatic composure despite the growing urge to break character and demonstrate why humans had also evolved impressive punching abilities. The collective believes your coffee is the source of humanity's unnatural composure, Krill Zal explained. A biological weapon you've been using to maintain advantage in negotiations. We intend to level the playing field. It's just a beverage. Ellie exclaimed. A mild stimulant. A convenient fiction. Krill Zal hissed. Our scientists have been studying it extensively. The formula is complex, but we're close to weaponizing it. That's when Mick, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, said, guys? I think I just triggered some kind of alarm. He pointed sheepishly at a pulsing red button his elbow was resting on. Sirens wailed. Security shutters began slamming down around the market. Krill Zal's mandibles twitched in irritation. Seize them, he commanded, and secure the coffee reserves. As we made a strategic retreat, not a run, diplomats never run, I received another emergency communique. Final coffee reserve in Brazil destroyed. Earth entering caffeine withdrawal. May the gods have mercy. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was chaos incarnate. Delegates shouted over each other. Translation devices struggled to keep up with 17 simultaneous arguments, and the Methane Quadrant's representative kept accidentally igniting whenever the Flame Lords made a forceful point. I stood at Earth's podium, outwardly maintaining my diplomatic calm while inwardly processing the latest reports from home. The situation was dire. Major cities had declared states of emergency, productivity had plummeted 87%, and the Global Barista Alliance had declared itself a sovereign nation with nuclear capabilities. Order in the Council. Secretary General Blorb's gelatinous form pulsated with authoritative ripples. Representative Quinn, please continue your statement. I cleared my throat. As I was saying, Earth demands an immediate investigation into the systematic theft and destruction of our coffee plants. A culturally significant botanical species protected under Galactic Treaty 5529b, Section 12, Paragraph. Preposterous. Krill Zal buzzed, his wings vibrating with indignation. The Vespid Collective categorically denies these slanderous accusations. We have no interest in your bitter plant water. Then perhaps you can explain this, I said, activating a holographic display showing surveillance footage of Vespid ships departing Earth's coffee-growing regions. Clearly doctored, Krill Zal dismissed. Everyone knows humans lack the technological sophistication to produce reliable visual evidence. Something inside me shifted. A diplomat's training includes thousands of hours of insult tolerance, but there's a line. That line apparently was questioning our ability to operate a basic camera. I'm sorry, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. Did you just suggest that the species that created cat videos lacks visual documentation skills? The council chamber went silent. In 70 years of Galactic Council history, no human diplomat had ever shown irritation. Several delegates activated their recording devices, sensing a historic moment. Furthermore, I continued, feeling an unfamiliar heat rising in my chest. The footage was authenticated by 3 independent sources, including your own Vespid intelligence service, which, might I add, still uses what is essentially glorified Morse code to communicate securely. Gasps echoed around the chamber. Admiral T. Loki, seated behind me, whispered, "Zeph, protocol dictates maintaining a neutral tone." "I am being neutral," I replied, gripping the podium hard enough to leave finger indentations in the supposedly indestructible material. If I weren't being neutral, I might point out that Krilzar's accusation is about as logical as a photosynthetic vampire. The Lumerian delegate actually fainted. Apparently, my barely raised voice registered as a catastrophic emotional event on their sensory equipment. My communicator pinged with another update from Earth. Last emergency coffee capsules depleted. Humanity now fully decaffeinated. Global mood spicy. As I read this, Krilzar continued his smug denials. Perhaps if humans spent less time consuming stimulants and more time developing actual diplomatic skills. Something inside me snapped. 7 years of diplomatic training, thousands of hours of meditation, and a lifetime of carefully cultivated chill, all of it vanished in an instant. "Listen here, you overgrown cockroach," I said, my voice carrying throughout the chamber without the aid of the amplification system. "Humanity has tolerated your bureaucratic nonsense, your speciesist policies, and your condescending attitude because we're nice people. But you've made a critical error in judgment." I leaned forward, and to my satisfaction, Krilzar actually took a step back. "You took our coffee." Before Krilzar could respond, Admiral T. Loki's communicator blared with an alert she hadn't bothered to silence. A voice that sounded suspiciously like Earth's president announced, "Initiate Operation Espresso Shot." T. Loki looked up, her normally anxious expression replaced with something almost serene. "Well," she said, "it's about time." Across the council chamber, delegates were receiving urgent communications from their home worlds. Apparently, Earth's diplomatic corps, the most patient, reasonable group in the galaxy, had simultaneously delivered a message to every world: "No more Mr. Nice Human." As Krilzar began to understand the gravity of his mistake, Dr. Bronson burst into the chamber, dragging a captured Vespid scientist. "Tell them," she demanded. "Tell them why you really wanted our coffee." The scientist's mandibles quivered. "It's not a weapon," he confessed. "We discovered that when processed through our physiology, human coffee produces an effect similar to your intoxicants. The collective has been running the largest recreational drug operation in galactic history." The council erupted in shocked buzzing. Krilzar's exoskeleton began to turn translucent, a sure sign of Vespid panic. I smiled for the first time in the council chamber. Not my diplomatic smile. My real one, the one that showed teeth. "Admiral," I said calmly, "I believe it's time for Plan B. This is, without question, the stupidest plan in the history of interspecies relations," Admiral T. Loki announced as she zipped up her Vespid exoskeleton costume. And I was present for the Great Moonpie incident of 2089. We were huddled in a maintenance closet aboard the Vespid diplomatic cruiser, where, according to our intelligence, the majority of Earth's stolen coffee plants were being stored. The plan was simple in theory: infiltrate the Vespid ship disguised as maintenance drones, locate the coffee repository, and beam the plants back to Earth before the Vespids realized what was happening. The execution, however, was proving challenging. "Stop complaining and help me attach this third arm," I grunted, struggling with the prosthetic appendage that kept flopping against my chest like an intoxicated tentacle. "At least your exoskeleton fits," Ellie grumbled, her disguise clearly designed for a Vespid half her size. "I look like I'm wearing Vespid sausage casing." Mick Dazzle, meanwhile, had somehow acquired an exoskeleton that wasn't just convincing but fashionable, complete with iridescent highlights that technically violated 13 different dress codes. "Vibe check, team," Mick said, adjusting his antenna. "We need to buzz like we belong." I'd been practicing. He demonstrated a series of clicks and wing vibrations that sounded vaguely like a broken blender trying to puree a fork. "That's not Vespid communication," Ellie sighed. "You're just making garbage disposal noises." Actually, T. Loki consulted her translator. "He just said your egg sacs shimmer with the wisdom of the ancients, which is surprisingly appropriate as a formal greeting." "Told you," Mick grinned. I'm fluent in vibes, universal language. The ship's intercom system announced something in Vespid that sent T. Loki scrambling for her translator. Change of plans, she said urgently. They're moving the coffee to the bio-research lab now. We need to move. We awkwardly skittered out of the closet, attempting to imitate Vespid locomotion, an effort that made us look less like fearsome insectoids and more like humans having simultaneous muscle cramps. Remember, I whispered as we approached a security checkpoint, antenna down is a sign of respect. Antenna up is a challenge to authority. Of course, at that exact moment, Mick's prosthetic antenna sprung to full upright position, locked in place by a mechanical failure. The security drone's compound eyes swiveled toward us. Identify, it demanded in harsh Vespid clicks. Mick, rather than freezing in panic, leaned into his malfunction. He raised all his limbs, vibrating intensely, and emitted a series of clicks that had T. Loki's eyes widening in horror. What did he say? I hissed. He just declared himself the reincarnation of the Vespid Supreme Ancient. Here to inspect the holy nectar, T. Loki translated in disbelief. The security drone's programming visibly struggled with this information. After what felt like an eternity, it lowered its appendages in deference and stepped aside. The path to the sacred chamber is clear. Ancient One, it clicked respectfully. We hurried past, T. Loki muttering. That shouldn't have worked. That really shouldn't have worked. Never doubt the power of confident nonsense, Mick whispered back. We reached the bio-research lab, where rows upon rows of Earth's coffee plants were being cultivated under artificial conditions. Vespid scientists buzzed around, carefully harvesting beans and processing them through complex machinery. Look at this operation, Ellie whispered, already taking readings with her concealed scanner. They've optimized growing conditions beyond Earth standards. These yields are 40% higher than our best agriculture. So the good news is we found our coffee, I said. The bad news is we're in the middle of a heavily guarded lab with no clear extraction plan. Actually, T. Loki pointed to a massive Vespid in ornate armor entering the lab. I think the bad news is that the Vespid Supreme Commander just arrived. The Supreme Commander buzzed authoritatively, and the scientists lined up at attention. One presented a small cup of processed coffee, which the commander examined with reverence. This is the moment, the commander announced in clicks that our translators caught, the perfected form of human calm beverage. With this, the collective will emerge as the dominant force in galactic politics. That's when Dr. Bronson decided it was the perfect time for an impromptu scientific lecture. She stepped forward, her too tight exoskeleton creaking ominously. Actually, she began in flawless Vespid clicks. When had she learned that? Your processing method is fundamentally flawed. Human coffee requires specific enzymatic interactions that your physiology simply cannot replicate. The lab fell silent. The Supreme Commander's antenna twitched. Explain, he demanded. What followed was a 15-minute dissertation on human digestive chemistry, complete with improvised diagrams using coffee beans arranged on a lab table. Bronson had fully captivated her audience when her exoskeleton finally gave up, splitting down the back and revealing her very human lab coat underneath. Chaos erupted. Alarms blared. Security drones descended from ceiling compartments. New plan, I shouted. T. Loki, initiate emergency protocol caffeine rush. The Admiral pulled out a device that looked suspiciously like an Earth TV remote control. I still think this is a terrible idea, she said, but pressed the button anyway. Nothing happened. The Supreme Commander chittered something that translated roughly to pathetic. Then Mick, who had been suspiciously quiet, stepped forward, his fake exoskeleton now completely abandoned, and in his hand was the actual emergency device. Sorry, T. Loki, he grinned. You grabbed my universal remote, easy mistake. He pressed the button. The lab was suddenly bathed in golden light as transport beams locked onto every coffee plant in the facility. One by one, they began to dematerialize. No. The Supreme Commander lunged forward, but it was too late. The carefully cultivated coffee plants, along with all the processed beans, vanished in a shimmer of particles. Where did you send them? I asked as security drones closed in from all sides. Everywhere, Mick said, his usual laid-back expression replaced with something almost serious. Every Earth embassy, every human settlement in the galaxy. They'll never be able to cut off our supply again. The Supreme Commander loomed over us, vibrating with fury. You realize this means war, humans? I smiled. I wouldn't recommend that, Commander. You see, while we've been keeping you occupied, humanity has been, how should I put this, waking up. The Galactic Council's emergency session was broadcast to every world in the Alliance. Attendance was mandatory, viewing was compulsory, and tension was palpable. The image of Earth, normally a peaceful blue marble on the central display, now pulsated with an ominous red glow that the technical staff swore was not a special effect. Secretary General Blorb's gelatinous form rippled nervously as he called the session to order. The Council recognizes High Commander Nix of Earth's United Defense Forces, he announced, voice modulator pitched higher than usual. The figure that stepped onto the platform wasn't wearing the traditional diplomatic garb of Earth representatives. Instead, Commander Nix, who had never before addressed the Council, wore a matte black uniform adorned with what appeared to be coffee bean insignias. Her expression made the Draconian Empire's executioners look cuddly. For 70 years. Commander Nix began, her voice unnervingly calm. Humanity has played by your rules. We've filled out your forms. We've endured your bureaucracy. We've smiled politely at your speciesist jokes. And in return, we asked for very little, just the simple courtesy of not messing with our coffee. The chamber was so silent you could hear a whisper moth's wings, which was especially impressive considering they existed in a different dimension. But you just couldn't help yourselves, could you? Nix continued, pacing the platform with predatory grace. You saw our patience as weakness, our tolerance as vulnerability, our diplomatic flexibility as lack of spine. On the massive screens surrounding the chamber, footage began playing humans worldwide receiving emergency coffee rations, the caffeinated gleam returning to their eyes. Baristas emerging from bunkers like warriors of old. Citizens wearing T-shirts with slogans like "Death before decaf and espresso yourself," with extreme prejudice. What you're witnessing, Nix explained to the horrified Council, is humanity when we've had our coffee. Focused. Productive. Reasonable. The footage shifted to scenes from the brief coffee shortage, stock markets crashing, productivity plummeting, and most terrifyingly, humans staring blankly at walls instead of checking their phones. And that, Nix's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried throughout the chamber, was just the beginning of humanity without coffee. Representative Krill Tsar, now stripped of his council position but required to attend as the Vespid representative, buzzed nervously. Surely this biochemical dependency proves our point about it being a controlled substance. Silence. Silence. The word echoed through the chamber with such force that 3 translation devices exploded and a crystalline entity from Regal V developed a slight crack. Commander Nix hadn't shouted, her voice had simply become dense enough to have physical properties. The Galactic Council has 2 options, Nix continued, her calm fully restored. Option 1, recognize coffee as a protected cultural resource of Earth with all the diplomatic protections that entails. Option 2. She smiled, and 17 species simultaneously evolved a new fear response. On cue, the chamber darkened as Earth's entire space fleet decloaked above the Council headquarters. Not the diplomatic vessels everyone was familiar with, but the real fleet, the one that had been hiding behind Jupiter all these years. Humanity has been holding back, Nix explained pleasantly. You see, when we're properly caffeinated, we're quite inventive. Those ships aren't armed with traditional weapons. They're loaded with something far worse. The main screen showed a missile being loaded not with explosives, but with what appeared to be instant coffee, Nix confirmed. But the worst kind. The kind that comes in little packets and tastes like regret. One shot of this into your world's atmosphere, and every drop of water will make a beverage so bitter, so deeply offensive to the palate, that your populations will beg for mercy. You wouldn't, gasped the aquatic delegate, whose species literally lived in water. Try us, Nix replied. We're a species that voluntarily drinks something called Death Wish coffee for fun. Our capacity for spite is unmatched in the galaxy. Secretary General Blorb extended a gelatinous pseudopod in a gesture of conciliation. Perhaps we've been hasty in our judgments. A new treaty could be arranged immediately. I'm glad you're being reasonable. Nix smiled. We've taken the liberty of drafting one already. It's quite straightforward, just 7,429 pages. We'll need it signed within the hour. That's impossible, protested the bureaucratic collective's representative. Our legal review process alone takes 17 cycles. Funny thing about coffee, Nick said, sipping from a mug that had materialized in her hand. It helps with reading speed. Within 57 minutes, the Galactic Coffee Accord was signed by every member world. Earth's coffee was declared a protected resource. The Vespid Collective was ordered to pay reparations in the form of honey. Turns out it makes an excellent coffee sweetener. And humanity's diplomatic corps has returned to their posts, perfectly calm, perfectly reasonable, and now perfectly feared. As for me, Zeph Quinn, I was promoted to Earth's first caffeinated affairs ambassador. My office now has a direct line to every world government and the galaxy's finest espresso machine. The universe learned an important lesson that day: never come between a human and their coffee. We're perfectly happy to be the chill, reasonable species of the galaxy, but we need our beans to do it. Some say the Vespid Supreme Commander still has nightmares about humans holding empty mugs. Others say the Galactic Council keeps an emergency coffee reserve, just in case. All I know is that diplomatic meetings now include a coffee break, non-negotiable.